Hello and welcome to this new video where today I'm going to talk about my EMEA player rankings. So how we're going to do this is pretty much just I don't know if it's going to be day by day, but I'm going to pretty much now with the split 2, stage 2, I'm just going to put out a ranking of every single player on every single team for every region. And pretty much what it's going to look like is we're going to do 12 through 4 in one go, and then we're going to do the top 3 of each role one by one. Now, the one thing that's been kind of difficult is I've done the 4 different roles and then a flex player, and pretty much I've just based it off of their most recently played agents, and also I also based it on the rosters that there was at the start of split of this stage. Meaning some rosters will look a bit different than what they did at the end, but that's just how I'm going to do it because I wanted 12 in each, which also means that the roles is a bit weird, but this is how I decided to do it. And I just looked at the agent pools and then based it off of that. All right, let's start. So here we got the first big list with every single role 12 through 4. Let's start by talking about the Sentinels for a bit. Overall, I just feel like Olizera has just not been able to prove himself as much, and I think Monster arguably has looked better at the times, like at the moments where they've had the chance to prove themselves. Then it's Elite. Obviously, he didn't play the entire stage, but I still think Elite is a decent enough to be here. But honestly, like this Sentinels, like EMEA's Sentinels are so fucking stacked, man. I mean, it tells you everything when you have Yeti at 9, man. Because obviously then Magnum, Hero, Mini, and then Chronicle is a bit of a weird one. Obviously we won't have Alpha here because generally, like, it's been a little while now. Because generally as well, if they're playing Viper, I count Viper as either a controller or a Sentinel. As those are generally going to be the 2 roles that plays it. And Chronicle has pretty much only played Viper and Senti. While Alpha has been more of the flex play, which I think is a bit of a weird thing, but it is how it is. And honestly, Kron doesn't shine the most on the Senti role, as I do feel like he is better on the Initiator, and on the Viper, obviously, where I think he's one of the better Vipers in the world, and that's probably why he's this high up at 5th. But yeah, we have Chronicle as 5th, and Benji at 4, which is like maybe a bit of a hot take, but I just think the 3 above him have just shown more recently. And although some parts of these lists will be based off of prior experience, I also never really considered Benji like, although he's been an absolutely fantastic Sentinel, I've never been to the point where he is clearly number 1 in EMEA, for example. I think there's multiple people in EMEA that you could argue above Benji at almost every single time, but he's still obviously one of the best Sentis in the world, so therefore he's 4. Now going into the duelists, I mean, Philo is last. I think the duelists are pretty stacked as well in EMEA. I feel like the initiators and controllers is probably the 2 weakest, and the flex actually. All those 3 are probably a bit weaker. I think Duelist and Sentinel are really strong though for EMEA. So Philo being last doesn't tell you a lot, in my opinion. Then Penny, who I think have been great for Apex, but I just haven't seen enough of him to put him above somebody like Alexic, who has just looked absolutely fantastic at moments. And then obviously we have Camo, who, although the reason he's this high is mostly because of the supportive aspect that we know he brings to a team like Team Liquid. Like, he's such a great supportive duelist. But obviously, I can't really put him higher just purely based off of firepower. And then we have Ara, who I think is a player that I feel like have been underrated for the since he joined the roster. But also, we haven't really seen him much, so you can't really put him much higher than this. And his peaks, and although his peaks are very high, he also has some pretty poor lows. And it's kind of similar with Zeus, just that I feel like Zeus we have seen a bit more of. And obviously Zeus has had a very up and down season, but I still think he deserves the 7th spot. As we then go 6, Martine, which I feel like a lot of people will say is low, considering we also have Comeback at 5. Which, Comeback is one of those players that it's a bit of a hot take probably to put in 5th, but I feel like it won't in a year. Like, I just think Comeback wasn't on a great team and still looked pretty good, and that's why I have him in 5th. Then we have Levin in 4. Levin has just been absolutely fantastic for BBL this year. But I do think there is 3 duelists that I would put above him. Now, initiators, we have Angel last. He's a great IGL, but anything that has to do with his role play, no. Unfake, sad to see him this low. I wanted him to be better, but honestly, he just didn't look that great for at least, especially not fragging wise. And then we have Vekash, who I feel like is a bit of the opposite of Unfake, where Vekash for mates actually I think looked pretty good fragging wise, but it's just the supportive Jew tool and everything like that isn't that great, and honestly his fragging wasn't that amazing either, although I do think there's definitely potential there. At 9 we have Krax, who's a player that I still think his versatility is really lacking and is really hindering Foot, and that's why I have him at 9. But I still can't deny that he's a great fragger, and he has the best K in the world. Like, bar. Now, after that, we have Flya, who might be a bit of a hot take, but honestly, I feel like from like 7 through 11, like you could put these in any order. But I have Flya at 8, as I do feel like, although Flya has had a bit of a rougher year at times, I feel like the supportive util and what we've seen from him, he has still been a really solid player for that Koi roster. And there's a reason why he has stayed for them with the entire year, compared to some of the other players on that roster. Now, Molesy at 7 is probably, I think, going to be the highest Apex player we have. And it's for good reason. I mean, Molesy has had a fantastic year, and is arguably the best player on that Apex roster. Now, 6, we have Yampi, who has been a great IGL for BBL, but I just think firepower-wise, someone like Ovis is a lot more consistent and good. Ovis is a bit of a weird one. I was considering putting him on flex, considering he's been playing quite a lot of duelist off of late, but I still ended up putting him on Initiator, as I do feel like Sadak is more of the flex player on that roster than what Avis actually is. And then we have Crashies at 4, who honestly could have been top 3, but I just had a bit of a hot take, I think, at 3, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think 3 is most likely a bit of a hot take. But either way, Crashies 4. Let's move on to controllers, where we have CNED last. Now, CNED, he's a fragger, but honestly, his controller was pretty poor. It was pretty poor. And now Kicks 11, he's just an initiator play, man. Like, his controller he's always looking uncomfortable in controller and always has. Now, Prox, I think, has potential, but he just couldn't really show it. I mean, I actually say this mates roster was just chaos, and you saw the potential on every single one of their players. We just didn't really fully get it developed. Now, Avova at 9, he had a pretty rough year overall, but I think the peaks that we see from Avova are just really high, so I can't really put him any higher, or any lower than 9. Batty G at 8, I think at Koi, when we've seen Batty G, he has actually looked really good, and that's one of the big highlights from this Koi roster. Now, overall, I still think he isn't really up to par with these other ones, as Boo and Boaster, the next 2, are kind of the 2 IGL controllers that are like not that great fraggers, maybe, or maybe like they can frag a bit, but they're mostly just like the big IGL name, and I think just in general Boaster is a bit of a better IGL than Boo, so therefore I have Boaster above Boo. Now at 5 I have Profek, and then a bit of a hot take probably, I have Grubinho at 4. I think this guy's been one of the most underrated controllers in the region, pretty much since like he joined Tier 1 last year. Now, this year, I do think, although he had a bit of a rough start to the year now, with the Giants, obviously, it's looking so much better, and he's looking so good. And I was thinking about putting him top 3, but I just think the top 3 is kind of difficult to crack. What I would say 2 controller players of this year, like I put Corbinho as my second best controller in EMEA last year, but there's just been so many new controllers coming into the league that have been so good this year that Groovy has actually dropped down on my list down to 4. Now Flex, this one is a bit of a difficult one, but we had Batu last. I think he has really struggled pretty much the entire year, and therefore he's just last here. Kovac as well is a bit less proven maybe than Batu, one would say, but I think he looked better at Vitality than Batu ever did at Apex, really. Then Sadak at 10. I think Sadak is a great IGL. I just think his play on his own has been kind of really bad this year. Now, Mr. Fallen at 9. I think he's a solid flex player, but not anything special. Natank is where we get into the more big names. I think Natank's firepower is incredible. I just think, although he is a flex player, the reason he is a flex player is because he can't really play a lot, or he isn't really that great with any agents. So he just kind of is there for firepower and then just plays whatever is asked of him. And it kind of works, although I wouldn't say he's a great flex player per se. And I kind of feel the same about Kamek, although I think Kamek, utility-wise, is probably a bit better than Natank. Now, Flickloss, on the other hand, who is number 6 here, I actually think has proven to be an absolutely incredible flex player. I mean, obviously he's shown up a lot here in playoffs now, but even in the regular season, I thought this guy was just solid overall, and the supportive utility he has on with Aura, and like, yeah, he's just a great player. Although the reason he's only done at 6 is because I think his flex isn't like it's mostly Initiator with like the occasional, I think, controller he's played a bit. But yeah, going on to 5, we have Paditek, who I think this is a pretty big jump here. And that's probably the reason why also I flick lost to 6, is because I think there's a pretty big jump to the top 5, as Paditek is arguably one of the best supportive players in the entire league. And he's just an absolutely fantastic player. But obviously he lacks some parts of that firepower, and that's where I think Sociable comes in, who I think, although not as supportive of a flex player, like he just brings that firepower. And with the roles he's playing, like that kind of works compared to Kamek and Natank, as I said, that sort of has that firepower, but sort of just plays roles where it's not necessary, meaning their util kind of suffers for it. While Sociable a lot of the time plays agents where high firepower helps you a lot more, which is why he's so much higher, in my opinion. Now, going into the top 3 of the Sentinel class, we start with West Side, and this is probably going to be a bit of a hot take. This guy has just been absolutely incredible this entire year. Like, I genuinely believe so. Obviously, Giants have stepped up in playoffs, and that's why this might look like recency bias, but honestly, I thought he was one of the best Sentinels in the entirety of EMEA already. After kickoff, honestly, but also then after stage 1 and everything, like he just looked so good. Although Giants were like struggling, this guy's always looked really good for this entire year. That's why he's 3rd. I mean, I just really like him as a player. Now, 2nd place, we have Les, and this is definitely more of a take for earlier in the year and maybe prior years, as I do feel like obviously with Vitality falling off, he has maybe suffered a bit, although still, like, he's still less. And that's why I have him at 2nd, really. I feel like if Vitality would have been good for the entire year, and Les would have continued, like, just being in form, he could be argued for number 1. But I just think with how Team Liquid has looked, and the amount of fragging combined with him also being the IGL, there's no debate that that's his number 1. Like, honestly, like, I could see the debate for Nats being considered the greatest player of all time at this point. I do think probably Team Liquid needs to win an international before we say that, but honestly, he could be considered up there with Chronicle. Like, I would say he's like top 3, at least in EMEA. if not the world, in terms of like greatest players of all time. And he's just getting better and better. It's absolutely ridiculous how good this guy is. And let's just say him, and I would say one or two more players or before it was him and another player that we have pretty high on these lists that carried, although they did get a third player, but we'll get to that later. But that's just absolutely fantastic. Now going over to the duelists, we start off with Miniboo at 3, which honestly I feel like is maybe a bit of a hot take. Maybe some people think it's too low, some people think it's too high. I think this is good. I think the reason why I think a lot of people would say that this is too high is just because of the inconsistencies we have seen from Miniboo and him not really being able to find a good level. And I think that's a valid take, but I just think overall he is never or he's very rarely bad for Team Heretics, and I think that's such a good thing to have as a duelist. Although he has the stinkers, like they're not very common, and generally he's more of a supportive duelist, but he's really good at it, so I don't mind. Now going into number 2, we have Kaajak. Now this is a really high one. I mean, yeah, like if you watch this guy this year, he's just been absolutely fantastic. Like there's nothing going against that. Kaajak has been one of the best players in the world this year. And the only reason why he's really not number 1 is because I do feel like in high pressure moments, Kaajak has been crumbling a bit for Fnatic. Although for the most part, he's just like out of this world. Like out of this world for huge parts of the year, and that's why he's second. Now first we still have Derke, man. I know and this is why I always say that I don't think you can say that Kaajak has properly replaced Derke yet, because I still think Derke is number 1. I think Derke is just like the perfect combination of a fragger and supportive. Like, because he is such a great supportive duelist, but he's also one of the best fragging duelists in the entire world. Like, it's just ridiculous how good this guy is. And man, he just needs a team, man. He just needs, like, he has the highest ADR out of any player in the entire league, and he's playing on a team that barely could win this stage. Like, come on. This guy needs some help. Now, going into initiators. This is the first one is a bit of a hot take. We have Cloud at number 3. Now, once again, a lot of people are going to say Giants X hype, like recency bias, whatever. I don't think so. I think Cloud is genuinely this good. Like, obviously, maybe you could argue, I would argue as well that the Initiator class in EMEA isn't that strong, although Cloud is fucking insane. He's actually, and it's funny, we say recency, some might say recency bias, but like, Cloud has had a bad stage. Like, IGLing has been tough for him this stage, and it's actually the rest of the team that's kind of been carrying him. I just think Cloud in general is just such a fucking good player. Like, this guy's just so good that, like, I just needed to put him top 3 because he's fucking underrated as shit. So he's 3. Now going into number 2, we have Trax. And this is the third, actually, not second, which we're going to get on actually a bit later. Team Liquid player. Now Trax, I think somebody mentioned that he's actually only lost 1 game for this entire year in EMEA, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, he's just absolutely fucking insane. Not only does he have games where he just absolutely frags out, but he also has some of the best supportive util in the entire world right now, especially on Fade. You can't really match up to Rians though, can you? I mean, this guy's probably the closest EMEA has gotten to another Leo. Like, it's genuinely the closest they have come. Now, I still think Leo overall is a bit of a smarter player, but I think Rians comes goddamn close, man. He is so good. Like, so good. Like, this guy is just absolutely incredible. And, I mean, that's why he's number 1. Honestly, like, if Team Heretics does well at Champs, like, this guy could be considered the number 1 player in the world. Like, genuinely, that's how good this guy is. Now, going into controllers. Number 3, we have a Rooksik. Now, this guy, there might be some recency bias here, actually, but I still think this guy's been absolutely frying for Na'Vi this entire year. Now, obviously, this split he is skyrocketed into probably the best controller in the world, except for maybe number one. And pretty much that, combined with just having an overall really good year otherwise as well, is why I have Ruxic at number 3. As at number 2, I mean, we have the one-tap demon, Shigetsu. I mean, look, he's technically should probably be playing Sentinel because he's not really a controller player, but his controller is still looking absolutely fantastic, and he is just frying for KC. Like, he is still looking like one of the best players in the world, although he's playing on a not bad KC team, but like they're kind of struggling. As Getsu still just looks like just a beast, bro. It's just crazy, but obviously he's not gonna beat Kika. And this is the third player on that Team Liquid side that's just like absolutely disgustingly good. As Kiko is, in my opinion, the best fragging controller in all of EMEA, if not the world. Now his util could get some improvement, but overall, like it's still like his controller util has still been really fucking good for Team Liquid. And then on top of that, he brings pretty much the firepower of a top tier duelist in terms of fragging. So it's like, this guy is just everything you'd ever want in a aggressive controller player. So yeah, that's why he's number 1 in EMEA. Now going into Flex, we start with number 3 where we have Xiao. Now Xiao is at a bit of a rougher year, but has started to come back to form now. And I do think that's why he deserves a top 3 spot here. I think he's still one of the best players in the world. Like top probably 20 to 30. But yeah, he's had a bit of a rougher year, and therefore he's 3. Now going into second place, I mean, Woods needs to be pretty high on this list. The reason really why he is second is pretty much just because I think the number 1 player on this list not only has a higher peak, but I also think has a lower floor. While Wood, I would say, okay, their peaks are probably pretty similar, although I would say I would still put number 1 slightly above him, like very slightly. But I also think that Wood has a floor that's pretty low. Like, Wood has games where he just pulls out stinkers, man. And although number 1 also can have those sort of games, I still think number 1 overall has them less, and they're usually not as bad in my experience, and it's Alfier. I mean, do I need to say less? It's fucking Alfier, bro. He's like, he should be number 1 in the Sentinel class, but recently Kron has pretty much been playing only Sentinel, and it's been Alfier and like the Teo, their duelist, like, and then some KJ as well in there. Like, he's just playing everything right now. So he's not really playing Sentinel, so that's why he's in Flex. But if Kron was here, Kron would be number 1 as well. And it's not really that Kron is low in the Sentinel tier, because he's not as, like, because the Flex tier is less stacked. Obviously, that's like one of the reasons, but mostly it's because Kron is a Flex player and not a Sentinel player. Alfier, on the other hand, can do both, and can do both at an absolutely fucking extreme level. And that's why he's number 1. Now, that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe if you enjoyed it. And I will see you tomorrow with Let's Do Americas.